the topic of Dragon Age Inquisition. There's many things that happened to me during the game of Dragon Age Inquisition, not least of which is playing through a haunted mansion, seeing a priest be punched in the face, and reading about ancient histories of another world that doesn't exist anymore. It's a good game. It's a really good game and series of games, in fact. BioWare gets a lot of flack lately because of rightly deserved issues with Mass Effect Andromeda and even the complete failure that was Anthem. Oh god. Anthem, remember those loading times? Fuck me. Took forever. Wait, remember the faces in Andromeda? They kind of look like my face right now with the sun shining on it, right? They really do haunt me. Anyway, BioWare can make good games. They have made good games. Hell, they are hopefully making a good game right now with Dragon Age Dreadwolf coming. Don't screw this up, BioWare. I want another good Dragon Age. It'll be fun. It'll be fine. But right now, for this video, we're talking about the 60 hours that I spent playing Dragon Age Inquisition. This game has been in my to-do list since it launched all the way back in 2014. I tried to play it in 2015 when I could afford it, but honestly, it cost me just to not play any games at all for most of that period of my life. Let's not mention dark times any further. We need to talk about this game because it received so much hate from people in the gaming world when it launched. No lies. I heard people say that the first two games were better, which no, they were okay, but Dragon Age Inquisition did everything better than those two could ever have done. We go to more than one city instead of just Kirkwall. In fact, as far as I understand, in Dragon Age Inquisition, we can get to almost every single part of Thedas, excluding of course the Qunari, wherever the hell they come from, and the Divinity Imperium, though we do talk a lot about the Divinity Imperium. We will have to start talking about the game itself. Look, this intro has now reached 300 words, and I will need to work on the actual plot, game design, graphics, and then something about history. I'm not sure. I can't really see you guys. That sun is insanely bright, and there's like people looking at me strangely over there. But whatever, we'll do it. Did you know that the Dragon Age games are called that because the world of Thedas has literally entered the Age of Dragons? Now, this should not be confused with the older histories of Thedas before the First Blight. So, what is a Blight, you may ask? Well, the Blight is an event that took place a few thousand years before even the events of the first game of Dragon Age. A bunch of strong sorcerers from the Imperium tried to go into the Fade, which is like a different dimension, but not heaven or hell really. It's somewhere in between all of this. It's not purgatory either because there are demons there. Once there, they tried to go to a place called the Golden City through the Black Gates, where the god of Thedas is supposed to reside. Like, this is like the god. Like, no one's better than him. It's their god, right? But only something went wrong, and some sort of corruption escaped into the real world of Thedas. Now, this corruption created the first Blight, and every few hundred years a new Blight starts. It is the job of the Grey Wardens, these guys, you know. Blackwall isn't technically one, but you know these guys. These sour bastards to recruit more of their own people, making them Grey Wardens. Once they've got enough Grey Wardens, they go and find what they call an Archdemon, which each Blight has an Archdemon. Now we need to be clear here, an Archdemon is not necessarily straight from the Fade. No, an Archdemon in the world of Dragon Age is when the corruption that infects the world and make Darkspawn reaches one of the old gods. Now these are not the same old gods that the elves worship. Instead, These old gods are ancient and super strong dragons that live deep inside the earth and were usually worshipped by humans and dwarves and some later elves. But not the old elves, sometimes elves, but not the oldest of elves. It's very important that you make that distinction, because the oldest of elves, the ones that were there before the humans, they actually did worship gods, not dragons, like gods, right? Now in Dragon Age Inquisition, we are in an age just after the last blight, like Dragon Age Origins. That's during a blight, right? The first blight of quite a few hundred years, right? Now, this means that there are quite a few Grey Wardens still running around the world, because they had to recruit new Grey Wardens, obviously, to fight the blight, right? Okay, so that explains the Darkspawn and what Grey Wardens are. Those are just two aspects. These draconic beings that can become archdemons, however, are not the same dragons we see throughout the world of Thedas in the modern world. No. Instead, they are entirely different. Intelligent beings that are impossibly strong at times. Like literally, these guys can cast magic, shapeshift, do whatever the hell they want. Also, no one really knows where the original blight comes from. We know the blight started when the Tevinter Imperium sorcerers went in to find the Golden City through the Black Gate into the Fade, right? But we have no idea where the actual blight comes from. Also, no one has any idea what the hell happened inside the Fade when the Tevinter Imperium sorcerers decided to go in and take on God, which I don't know his name. It's not Andraste. Andraste is not the god. Andraste is the herald or the prophet or whatever you want to call her, right? Now, that should tell you almost everything about the blight. We should talk about Andraste because she has more direct effects on our current story in Dragon Age Inquisition. You see, the Tevinter Imperium were a bunch of a-holes that basically took over most of Thedas, right? And if you're not a sorcerer or from Tevinter Imperium, you were a slave, which means they basically enslaved everybody. It can be more complicated, and it is more complicated, but that's like the baseline of what you need to know about the Tevinter Imperium. So now Andraste is not a god or an angel, but she was what I call her a prophet, right? I know you can call her, but I basically call her a prophet. She did eventually become the wife, apparently, of the god, the main god, like the big one, you know, the one that they went into the Fade for, of the world of Dragon Age, of Thedas, whatever, right? But she and her warriors also rebelled against the Tevinter Imperium. You see, around the same time, the Imperium wanted to go into the Fade to fight this god. This all happened at the same time, more or less, right? So what happened, and my history is not exact here, is that at the same time that Tevinter was facing their slaves becoming Templars, who are immune to magic and can suppress it, they made a huge, giant, stupid mistake and went physically into the Fade. This is widely considered to be a very, very bad idea. This brings us to more current events, right? You see, for a few hundred or 1,000 years, the Templars and the Temple of Andraste have made non-Tevinter sorcerers' lives a living hell, because while they did succeed in driving away the Tevinter Imperium from the main continent of Thedas, the Tevinter Imperium still exists. So what happens if you're on Thedas? You can't practice magic outside of what they call the circle. You can only practice magic in very specific types of magic. And if you even talk about being a free mage, they basically give you a lobotomy. That's basically what they do, right? But not the kind we know where they seal your they seal your emotions and your magic, cutting you off from the Fade. Also, magic people get their power from the Fade. I need to point that out, right? You don't just have magic, you draw power from the Fade. Now, this procedure causes you to become useless and only be able to do very basic things. They call it being tranquil. And they will stand in a tranquil is very, very weird. They will stand in a fire and die unless somebody orders them away from it. Like, they feel pain, but they don't have the emotional power anymore to do anything about it, right? Okay, so the mages obviously revolted. This all happened during the previous blight, right? Because Because they were being controlled by the Templars, they couldn't respond right to the Blights. Now, this tore Theros apart, obviously, because there are people that feel sorry for the mages, and then there are Templars, and then there are devout people, and the church also became extremely corrupt, with the Templars wanting more and more power, which the clergy, well, the clergy, right? The clergy is also very bad in this game. They're not good. They wanted to tell the kings and queens of Theros, listen, you better do what we say because we are the church. And if you know a king or a queen, you know they're not gonna play ball for that very long, even in a world of magic, right? So this causes more issues, and eventually we are left with the Theros at the start of Dragon Age Inquisition, where Her Holiness, or something or other, not important, has managed to get the Templars and the rebel sorcerers to gather at one central spot. However, something went wrong, and a literal fucking hole in space and time opened, letting in demons to our world uncontrollably. Our character, however you made him, literally, is found at the epicenter of all of this and is blamed for doing so. That is where we are with the history of Dragon Age Inquisition, or at least humanish history, right? We need to also mention dwarves and elves, because those are two important races. I'm not even going to touch the Qunari. They're like an entire different space, right? Okay, so that would make this video, if we just do start talking about dwarves and elves, right, it would make this video like easily over 5 hours long, and I would have to sit on this couch with my fluffy pillows for a lot longer. Like, the dwarves literally had an underground kingdom, right, as large or larger than the entire continent that we play on, because they could go from one side of the continent to the other side of the continent, all while staying underground, right? And the elves, or the older ones at least, were strong. Like, they had so much strong magic that nobody, not even the Tevinter Imperium, which is the strongest like magical people, have been able to catch up to them at all, right? Now, modern elves, they're more annoying. You'll find these in games, in all three of them. Every sentence from them, they just complain. They complain about everything you do as a character. Even if you make your character an elf, the elven companions will complain about your actions, because they will see you as a human sympathizer. When, like, literally, so if you ever play, when you play this game, just know elves are annoying. But anyway, okay, not getting into the dwarves and elves history, not now anyway. I may make another video about that, just to explain the elves and get like all the lore and everything. But you should know that the history of Dragon Age is, or the very basics of it, you should know that now, right? This can lead us pretty well into talking about the game itself, which we're not going to sit here and do it. To be frank with you, I'm doing this during load shedding, and this is a comfortable space, and these couches, you know, they're historical. You see, there are several things that are happening all at once in the world of Dragon Age Inquisition. An ancient sorcerer previously stuck in the Fade, he's from Tevinter by the way, has re-emerged, killed Divine Justinia, like the Pope but with magic within the Dragon Age world, and is trying to take over all of the world again, because, you know, Tevinter ruled most of the world before. And anyway, you know what I mean, right? Mostly from what I can tell, he's doing this because he's a douche, or douche in Afrikaans. Like, there's really no other reason he's being evil though. Like, now we are the Inquisitor, right? We build an army, get some strong party members, and eventually go kick his teeth in. Almost literally, by the way. Like, we straight up make a giant hole in him after slapping his dragon in the face several dozen times. But while all of this is happening, the Templars and rebel mages are fighting. Sip for tension. I mean, all-out war in villages, towns, and wherever else they are currently at. Now, Corypheus, crazy Tevinter demon guy, is making sure they are fighting each other a lot. Also, in the main city, the name of which escapes me now, still does by the way, the Queen is having problems with different factions trying to overthrow her. which includes our own stupid uncle. And trust me, our uncle is really stupid. But also, during all of this, the Grey Wardens, remember these guys? They start hearing the calling. This means that a new archdemon is close, which is a bit of a problem because it's barely been 2 decades since the last one came through. And each time an archdemon comes through, most of the world gets destroyed. So they are antsy, unwilling to get more wardens, and very willing to find a permanent solution to this archdemon problem. Meanwhile, underground, they actually freaking chill for a moment. The dwarven cities do not play a part in this game a lot. So you can relax, make some friends, throw a dwarf or two, normal stuff. But the Dales, or the Elves, are busy looking for a place to live. But their stories were also more dealt with in the previous 2 games. You had a lot of Dales to deal with, right? Much of your time in Dragon Age Inquisition is just spent sorting out all the issues across Thedas. You see, if everyone is trying to punch everyone else, it makes it a bit more difficult to deal with a literal demonic dude just appearing from the closest approximation of hell. Now, I do not want to spoil the story more than that. There are twists, turns, end credit scenes, and quite a few characters that I'm not showing or talking about. These you will have to go and experience yourself by playing the game. So instead of talking about all of that, I'm going to talk about the gameplay. I cannot overstate this enough, but old crusty games and old crusty gamers hate any quality of life improvements in a game. They want to play Dragon Age Origins. They want to sit and struggle to level their characters, make mistakes, be unable to reset things, and ultimately end up having to replay the entire game just because of one mistake. But they were also very right though. Dragon Age 2 sucked ass in the combat department. Like, I tried playing it again and gave up so many times for certain fights that I ended up max leveling and still not having fun in that game. In Dragon Age Inquisition, there is a balance. In fact, if you are tactical or just straight running and bashing, you will find your joy in this game, no matter which one you ultimately choose to do. This is because the system developed by BioWare helps you to control each character's actions without having to physically switch to them. Whereas the tactical mode allows you to pause the game, see every enemy on the field, and strategically place your characters where you exactly need them, lobbing specific attacks at specific times to overwhelm something much stronger than you. It's the same with the skills. You see, they took what they had in Dragon Age 2 and refined it, made it easier to understand the skill trees, and then helped you by taking away the stress of choosing the wrong things. You see, you get one free skill reset potion, and then you can buy one for relatively cheap as well. This means that in one playthrough, you can genuinely experience all the small little changes you experience with each type of fighter, sorcerer, rogue, or whatever else you can imagine. The other thing they did, which helps more than you may imagine, is removing your status points allocation, which is something I do miss from all the games, but in the chaos that is Dragon Age Inquisition, I am quite happy. I don't have to wonder about choosing between intelligence, dexterity, strength, luck, guile, or whatever the hell else they usually put in, because there will be so much chaos on each battlefield. You see, you have limited slots for the skills that you do have available, which means you will never be out flinging every skill you've maxed out on. Instead, you need to choose between the 9 or 10 that you think will work with your play style and learn how to use them perfectly. This may mean bashing in someone's face to knock them over, or casting a spell from halfway across the map to get their attention before anybody else even sees them. This is just the combat. Dragon Age Inquisition also has relationships, conversations, and events that you need to focus on. The people in your keep are always there, and you must talk to them about everything. Get their opinions, and it will change the gameplay drastically as you keep going. Just knowing some piece of information will allow you to get a new weapon to your army or to introduce entirely new people to your party that might not have been there before. This goes for events as well. The earlier you do some events, the better you will fare in the later parts of the game. Personally, in this playthrough, I had done every side quest I could before starting the main quests, and I even carefully waited to complete some things before just blindly doing story quests, which there is a difference, which is probably why I never really had much trouble. No one in my party permanently died, or at least not that I allowed. I reloaded the save to let some of the Grey Warden annoyance die instead of, my Grey Warden to a super demon. It was a super demon. It was a super duper demon. It was a super duper 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 demon. We also need to consider how just the character build you have will affect things. Being a noble human means you have court influence, while being a dwarf means the dwarven quests are much easier for you to complete. While being an elf or Qunari means you have unique dialogue not at all available in just one playthrough as a human or a dwarf. The gameplay of Dragon Age Inquisition got so much flack when the game first released. I saw more videos saying how bad it is than actual games that told me whether or not it's worth playing. But I can tell you now, nearly a decade later, this game is so worth it. It took 60 hours to play through it this time, and I've not even done the DLC parts yet. It has such a fun and deep experience. Each piece has lore, and each piece of lore you remember helps you do something else amazing. We can now also talk about the last thing, something BioWare seems to have forgotten in modern games. I can only say a few things here. I have no development experience to help me here. Dragon Age Inquisition has really good graphics. I say this after playing Atomic Hearts, Diablo 3 and quite a few other games. Now, it has no video graphic. That which you play as in the game is what you get in cutscenes. Even the really awesome looking cutscenes is just normal gaming graphics. But it has really held up. The characters emote well and the areas look lush. Oh boy, does the world and maps of Dragon Age Inquisition look amazing. There are forests, deserts, watery places and just about everything else you can possibly think of. Which brings me to my main point I want to make about the graphics of Dragon Age Inquisition. Unlike the later games from BioWare, I mean Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda again, there is no weird things that are happening. No super long loading times and no weird distortion of faces. Though some of the characters do remind me of the horrible things that happened in Andromeda later on, it's not quite present here. Overall though, it looks quite good and certainly runs amazingly on my much more modern machine. You should buy and play this game. No, seriously, what are you all still doing here? Go download the game through Game Pass or just buy it from EA directly. The game is very much worth it. It will keep you busy for several hours on end and even allow you to replay the game over and over again. While it's downloading though, maybe watch one of my other videos and subscribe and throw a shoe at my memory. No, throw a shoe in my memory. That's something we usually do around here.